So just to finish that thought of Mr. Hillstrom's, they might show you like a formal regions where you see blue states. Blue states are Democrat, as he said, in more urban areas. People in urban areas are more worried about urine on the street. People in more rural areas, but urban, rural, they care about a lot of other things about what people are doing, their lifestyles and whatnot. And the red states are going to be the Republican states, and you usually find them in more rural areas. All right. On to our agriculture. Okay. You see, remember we talked about the moisture here. This is the corn belt. As it gets drier, this is the wheat belt. Okay. This is cattle ranging, and then we've got this Mediterranean agriculture here because we have that moisture coming in. We have wet winters and dry summers. The southeast is very hot and humid. Cotton prospered there, but they grow it in places. But it's, you guys, what we notice on the AP test is kids still think it's 1860 when they're writing. They talk about the South's all cotton and all slavery, and that ended in 1865. All right, so there is some cotton down there, but it's not as extensive as it used to be.
Fruit.
What's that?
Fruit.
Okay, yeah. So remember we talked about us being Mediterranean growing fruit? They also do it down here, all right? But you have to grow things that, you have to see the weather. If it's raining, you can't grow strawberries in the summertime, all right? It has to be, I think apples can.
Yeah, and oranges.
Apples and oranges. Oranges can withstand, yeah, that makes sense.
A lot of rice down there too.
Yes, on the coast you've got rice. We've got rice north of Sacramento, but that's, we created that by just diverting the rivers. All right, so we got ag. Anything else? Oh, as we've talked about, Mexico is very similar to the United States, as it's a very agricultural nation. We like farm workers from Mexico. And I watched this wonderful video on NAFTA this morning for my CP kids. And since NAFTA, we've gone from like 1 pound of avocados a year to like this incredible number, a pound of avocados, because we like guacamole. But we get a lot of our produce from down here in Mexico in the off season. When I was a kid, we ate seasonally, or if you ate something that was out of season, you ate it out of a can. We got a lot of canned vegetables, whereas now we get fresh vegetables all year round because we're bringing them up from Mexico and sometimes even farther south from South America in the off season, in the winter, okay?
Remember, Mexico's a primate city model because Mexico City is, at least 2 times larger than the next largest city.
More than.
Right. And then Maquiladora is on the border there.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Things just to remember.
Okay.
They might throw at you.
Yeah, all right. Okay, shall we go on?
Yeah.
Okay. Our next map will go to Europe.
Ooh.
Okay.
It's exciting.
All right, so it's actually a very small continent. It's only, the whole continent is 2/3 the size of the United States.
If you don't include Russia.
All right, what's that?
If you don't include Russia.
If we don't include Russia, okay, yeah, I never do. All right, I've been very clear that I'm a child of the Cold War. All right, everything that's wrong is because of the Russians. Okay, I learned that in Bullwinkle and
Natasha and Boris.
yeah. Rocky J. Squirrel. All right, okay, all right. In all the movies, the Russians were the bad guys. Yes.
Right.
So I usually don't include them.
Hunt for
but yes,
Red
you're
October.
Right. They are European up to the Ural Mountains, and then they're Asian. All right. Let's see, if we talk about population, there's 700 million people here. All right, the southern half is much more Catholic because the Catholic Church started down here.
Well, you also have to think about east-west, like Orthodoxy. And,
Yeah, we'll get to that. Okay, and then Martin Luther was up here, so here we see a Protestant north, and then as Sam pointed out, when it splits, the Roman Empire split, Constantinople became the Eastern Empire, and you see a Greek Orthodox Church in this part. And if you go, it's like a Catholic service, but if you look at some of their symbolism, it looks kind of Muslim. Well, just think of the part of the world that they were in and who they were appealing to. Architecture. our churches have steep pitched roofs because our peeps come from Northern Europe where it's more rain and snow.
Protestants.
Yeah, if you go over here, the Roman architecture of the time that they adopted were domed roofs. All right, it's just the Romans had a great idea and they ran with it. So Orthodox churches have the domed roofs. It has just really the part of the world that they come from. Okay, let's see. So we've talked about population migration. We've talked about they went through stage 2 of demographic transition early on, 1800s, and then these guys are going to go through it 1800s, early 1900s. So the population waves that came to the United States were first Northern European and then Southern and Eastern.
I would say you might get something about modern migration or current migration. So maybe talk about, there's an influx of Muslims coming into, France, Germany, and even into the UK. And so let me give you something like that.
And the big thing is that they're coming from former colonies. Like when we were in Spain, the people are from Morocco because this was a Spanish colony. The French are getting former French colony people. People in the UK, they're former colonies. And as we talked about, why are Turks going to Germany? They were allies in World War I, and then after World War I, Ataturk, the new leader, asked the Germans to come in and teach them how to set up a government and educational system, because there's that tie. All right, it wasn't a German colony.
It's
all right.
probably also important to point out that there's been like similar political reactions to migrants in Europe.
Okay.
Just how it's led to a rise in conservatism, populism, and
nationalism.
Yeah, nationalism.
Yeah, so we have, as we've talked about, 1% of Americans are Muslim, and we think they're pretty cool, okay? Who doesn't love Soleil, all right? But what happens is they're at 4 or 5%, and then you start getting freaked out when you start seeing a lot of something. You love the kebabs, you want to eat the kebabs, but then you want them to go home. So what's happening is usually working class people fear people coming in and working for less and taking their jobs. And studies show that they're doing the jobs that no one else is doing. Right now, they can't get people to go and work in the nurseries. They grow a lot of greenhouse stuff up here, and they've run out of migrants, not only from Muslim countries, but from Eastern Europe during the COVID-19, and people just aren't taking those jobs. But there is that, it gets out there that, oh, they're coming and they're destroying our life. They're taking our jobs. They want us all to become Muslim. So you get that. And we see some of that too in the United States, but not nearly as extreme as the populism and nationalism that's going on in European countries. You're not involved.
Yeah, economically, I was thinking it's quite different. The northern parts of Germany, a lot more wealthy. The southern parts are a lot more poor. As you tend to go east, you tend to see less income, less development in countries. But then there are hot spots. So it's not just like, it's hard to just put all your eggs in one basket and just say, oh yeah, Russia, it's undeveloped. Well, that's not true, because Moscow, St. Petersburg, all this western portion is very developed. Okay, but then there are parts out here in the rural areas that are less. The other thing I was thinking about was just hotspots. We've talked about the Caucasus Mountains. I don't know, are you going to get to this on the Asia map with balkanization and that?
Oh, we can do that right now because the Balkans are right there.
Okay, so the balkanization, the breaking up of Yugoslavia, and then you have that whole idea of self-determination. I keep thinking for some reason they're going to throw a political thing at them. And so remember here we've got the European Union, right? Everybody is trying to work together to create this common currency and take down borders, and it's working for the poor countries and not so much for the rich countries. We talked.
Well, because the rich country feels they have to pay for it.
Right. Okay. And the poorer countries, they're trying to operate at a level that they haven't been asked to before, and now they're having to, tax their citizens, and their citizens are like, nah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to pay any taxes. So politically, NATO, I don't know if they're going to throw a NATO question at you, but remember we said after World War II, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, all 11 different states kind of partner up, and then in 1991, when the Cold War ends, you have a lot of these eastern states come and join because they're hoping to get protection from Russia, and they're fearful that Russia's going to try to come back in and take them over again. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, right now, Russia's doing war games, having war games over here, testing out their military. And remember, they were all part of the Soviet Union, so these guys are like, help us, NATO. Make sure we don't become part of the USSR again. Okay. Other hotspots?
Well, okay, like classic questions. You have the Balkanization, the breaking up, of the Balkan Mountains, which was former Yugoslavia, that Mr. Hillstrom said. Spain is a question. Remember, you've got the Basques up here that want autonomy. The Catalonians want autonomy. The Galatians, they talk about it, but they never get worked up about it. And it's all the power is, what am I having a problem? Federal and central government.
Unitary?
Unitary, yeah, unitary, all the powers in Madrid. There's always questions about Belgium, the northern half being Dutch, they are Flanders, and the southern half being more French, they're Wallonia. Agriculture south and industrial north, they don't get along.
Polders.
What's that?
Dikes and polders.
Okay, well that's up here in the Netherlands, okay, right next to it, holding back the ocean. Turkey might be an interesting question, obviously more European in the west and not so in the east. And we talked before about Kurdistan being part of northern Iran, northern Iraq, this part of Syria, and then eastern Turkey. They want their own country. They want self-determination. They want they're a nation of Kurds. They're a stateless nation. They would like to have their own country, but nobody wants to give up their land. Turkey is dealing with, now it's over 4 million Syrian refugees, and the European Union is actually giving them money to keep them there. But Turkey's getting tired of it. They're saying, you got to pay us more to keep doing this. So that might be an interesting question. They want to get to Europe. This was interesting when the war, when they first started fleeing, Germany said, come on in. Angela Merkel took them because their schools are half empty. They've got a population problem. And the first wave of immigrants are always the doctors, lawyers, engineers, or very ambitious people. Okay, they don't have to necessarily be educated, but they're the ones that have the wherewithal to go and do something. She understood that. But as Sam mentioned, that nationalism, that populism, like, whoa, why are you bringing these different people in here? So Europe's put the brakes on those Syrian refugees. Okay. Oh, a Brexit question. Okay. The United Kingdom, their working class people got fed up with the open borders, Europeans being able to come in. Polish people would come in and work in those low-paying jobs, and working class people felt that they were taking their jobs away. Obviously, they're worried about Muslim immigrants, and they voted to leave the European Union. The British voted to exit. That's why it's called Brexit. And they've got to deal with that. They were told your livelihoods, meaning amount you can consume, is going to go down 13%. And they were like, okay, all right. The Irish over here, remember, Ireland is an independent republic, but Northern Ireland is part of the UK. And they're saying, well, we want both. We want to be part of the European Union and get all the perks that go with it. But we're still part of the UK. They're talking about leaving. Scotland's talking about leaving to make their own country so that they can be part of the European Union.
We have one more minute. So okay. I was just thinking agriculture. Since we just finished agriculture, we talked about GMO versus non-GMO. Visiting Europe, they want to have labels on those GMOs. They want organic produce. They want high quality foods. They tend to have more open air markets and farmers market type shopping than they do, here in the United States.
Okay, and maybe when we start the first, the new one, you can talk